Hello and welcome back to a New Pace podcast where we take time to pause, act, create and empower. As you know, my name's Leslie and I'm your host of this podcast, and today we have Lindsay Gatenby here to talk to us about what she does. She's a creative grief guide from Tell the Bees. Welcome, Lindsay. It's
Hi,
really good to have you here, Lindsay.
great to be here, Leslie. Thank you for having me.
How are you today?
Not doing too bad. I'm quite glad that we've had a bit of a break in the weather and we're cooler. And I know that'll probably get a few boos from people, but I'm not a hot person, not a hot weather person at all.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. I find the heat far too much for me,
Yeah.
especially when I'm working and busy doing things that I
Oh
can't
yeah.
just go and swim or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm.
So I suppose I'm just kind of curious, just getting to know you a little bit. So what is it that you do? How do you help people generally?
So what I do is I am a creative grief guide. I use skills that I've learnt through various trainings and things, through counselling skills, life coaching, hypnotherapy, and I generally gauge and refer to my own life experiences and my innate ability to create and my empathic energy flow, and help people in terms of getting in touch and retuning with their creative flow, in terms of that helping them on their grieving journey.
Mm. Yeah, and that sounds really important. You said a few things there about your own personal experiences, as well as all of those different tools and like expertise that you have, and essentially about kind of the outcome of being in creative flow. So,
Hmm.
what would you say being in creative flow is? What? How would you describe that?
I think it's really hard to describe because I think it's very personal with each individual as to how they actually attune to it and understand it and embrace it. But if it's from my perspective, I find creative flow is like, I like to call it a brain spa. Your brain's
Oh,
basically switching off and you are just in a moment. You are purely present because you're not thinking about anything else. You're not thinking about, and especially for me, you're not thinking about the pain of the loss. You're not really thinking about that person. That person might have inspired, and that's how I try to build it into the creativity that they may have inspired. But in that process of creating, you are purely focused on that moment of bringing something to life. So whether it's a blank page that you're finally filling with paint, or your hands are getting dirty in the ground because you're gardening, or you're preparing a beautiful meal for a family member, it's that point of there is nothing else going off in your head because you are purely focused on a task. And
yeah,
to me, that is creative flow and giving yourself that little, as I say, brain spa.
yeah. I love that phrase, brain spa, because it just feels really nurturing. And it
Mm,
feels like if we were thinking about our physical health, then we might go to the doctors about some sort of ailment or like a leg. Like you might go to a physiotherapist and then like you're physically being healed in some way, sort of there. And then if you go to the spa with your leg, then it can feel like really luxurious and nurturing.
mhm,
And I feel there's a lot of things that are similar with what we do. And like when I think about my own role as an art therapist, a lot of this really rings true to me as well. But just, just allowing people to express themselves and like
mhm,
being in flow.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And I think that's one of the things that people cut off very quickly
Hmm.
because it can bring emotions to the forefront that they don't want to experience and they'll shut down. But it can be a safe way to explore those
Yeah.
unpleasant feelings, or the feelings that are more negative to them. And it can be a way that feels almost like you're in control of it rather than letting the emotion control you. And it's
Mm.
about bringing that to them, like empowerment, which is part of it, but it's about empowering people to be able to make the right choices with their actions from their feelings.
Yeah, yeah. And at what point might someone come to you for some help, or how might they sort of decide that now is the right time, sort of thing?
So I would very strongly emphasize that if grief is affecting you daily and it is interrupting your general well-being day to day, then you are still at a point where you need professional help, that you might need a GP, you might need to see a proper grief therapist or grief coach. When someone needs me is when they have processed it to a point where it's not inhibiting them, but they feel like they're stuck.
Mm.
And I'm that little bit of grease that can help them get going again.
Yeah, because I suppose everybody's grief experience is different, and I'm mindful that you've got your own story as well. And just thinking about how often people have that sense of being in the emotions and then swinging over to sort of continuing with life, that dual process. And actually in that process of being so overwhelmed by those emotions, and maybe feeling kind of just like it's no words to kind of fathom that, being it suddenly needing to sort of have more things to do and to reflect. My guess is that they'd maybe struggle to reflect at those times.
It might be also that they're struggling to reconcile the fact that they have a new life now. And what do? You either stop or you have to move forward. And sometimes people need a guiding hand to help them take those first few steps.
Yeah. And it sounds like you do something really special for people, and the hypnotherapy and all of those sorts of things seem to maybe, I don't know, like kind of combine in a way that's useful depending on the person. So when might you lean more towards the hypnotherapy or more towards creativity, or how does that work?
So I always try to be very holistic with my approach with people, because everybody's unique, and as you say, everybody's grief is unique. And I think a lot of people encounter grief gatekeeping with it, like, oh, well, you should be over it by now, or they'll experience a lot of people trying to put them into pigeonholes and things like that. So my approach is not to do that, is to let them come forward into a safe space, to embrace them, to let them guide me and how they seem to be and what they need. So some people might be a bit more that they want the meditated state to get into, to be able to reach a point where they are calmed and reflected. So I might use the hypnotherapy not to bring them down completely, but to maybe do a little bit of visualization techniques and things. So I might take them into a meadow, and I might get them listening to the bees buzzing around them, and I might get them thinking about bees as a messenger to the afterlife. And if you could tell your loved one, what would you whisper to them, and what would you want the bees to carry forward for you? And that might work for some people, or it might not. The creative side of it, I would always try to encourage people, because humans are by nature creative, and it's only, unfortunately, school and moving on into further adult life that stamps it down.
Yeah, absolutely.
And unfortunately, creativity seems to be very fixated society on talent, and talent's got nothing to do with creativity. So it's about breaking down those barriers as well with people and getting them to reflect a bit more. So sometimes I might use the hypnotherapy to take them back to childhood, not in terms of dealing with it, but just when you were 3 years old and you were given a piece of Play-Doh, no one told you how to play with it. No one told you what you were going to make. You just sat down and decided, I'm going to turn this splodge into another splodge, but I'm going to tell mummy or daddy or grandma or whoever the carer was, oh, it's an octopus. Oh, yes, it's lovely and kind of bring them back to that joyful feeling of just being present and creating. So that's how hypnotherapy might work with that, and practically just exploring what they have an affinity to with creativity. Sometimes what I find really helpful is getting them to discuss with me stories of their loved one. Maybe their loved one had a creative hobby. And in terms of them learning that then means that they can share new memories with their loved one in a way. So it might be that mum always used to love baking. Learn how to bake a cake.
Yeah.
Decorate it. Get some skills that way. If they're a bit scared of that, go to a class. Then that brings in people and community and being able to get out and a purpose. And it's that sort of thing that it just grows and grows and snowballs with people. And that's the thing, that sometimes you can actually pinpoint a moment where there's a little spark and you think, oh, I've done it.
Yeah.
It's lit up now.
Wow.
And that's it. That flame's there now.
Yeah. That sort of pivotal moment. That sounds really, really special.
Yeah.
So would you be able to explain a bit more about the bees, really, and tell the bees? I was doing a bit of research and I just found it really interesting. And actually, I don't think I've quite understood the sort of origins of telling the bees. I can understand for sure already understand it as a metaphor and how you maybe connect with nature. But it'd be really good to hear about just the origin of how the bees can be messengers. And
so I'll be honest with you, I don't know what program I was watching or what book I was reading or what article came up where I first read many, many years ago that it was an ancient folklore tradition. But from that, it springboarded and I got an interest, and then I started reading and things. And it's very, it's mostly Western European, very strong ties with Germanic folklore, but very, very strong with English and British folklore. And the main thing was a lot of cottages and farms, little homesteads, would have their own little hive because honey was an important resource. Bees were very important. They helped to pollinate their crops. They helped to give them honey, which was not only sweet, but it was a healer. It could be a balm. The wax could be used for important things. Candles, making their homes nice, smelling nice. So bees were an essential working animal for them. I mean, without bees, you didn't have apples. Without bees, you didn't have half your crops that you needed. So obviously that importance was very well understood, and particularly in the medieval period. It was something that seems to be very prevalent. Now it's hard to pinpoint the actual rituals that went with it or how people approached it. And very much like anything with English culture, particularly, it was probably different from village to village, town to town. I mean, you can walk down the street and you've got different colloquialisms, you've got different ways of being, and that's just even within Yorkshire, so let alone across the country. But the main gist of it is that if there was a huge life event that happened within the family, within the household, if you did not go outside and inform your bees, then you were disrespecting them, and that could lead to misfortune on your household. And the belief was that it could lead them to swarm away from you and you've lost your bees, which obviously would be devastating to the family. So it was a case of going out and communing with nature and actually showing that reverence to it. And I think it harks back to, yes, we've been a Christian country for a very long time, but I don't think we've ever gotten rid of those paganistic roots. So I think it's that little bit of a nod that you could still maybe worship nature but in a way that wasn't so overtly worshipping it and wasn't so God, the word's gone. Animism. God,
Yeah.
I
This
put
is
my teeth back in.
yeah, I know what you mean, and I think sometimes what you've described there sounds like, you know, a real nurturing thing of being able to talk to nature and connect with nature, especially at a time of grief when, you know, really challenging, and actually there's often words can't come out, so you might not be able to find the words. And also this symbol perhaps of the bees being related to being productive, and maybe the step towards, you know, abundance and newness, and that kind of continuing with life and what's needed to be done. And there's something, I'd imagine that would take a lot of courage to step with, navigate your grief and be sort of communicating that. So, like, how soon would it have to happen?
Again, it's a bit unclear in terms of all the references that there are,
Yeah,
but you would have to inform them fairly quickly, because obviously they're there in the
yeah,
garden straight away. And it wouldn't just be deaths, it would be marriages or births, new things like that. But I think you're right. I think you're very close to it. I mean, my own personal view was that back in the times when it was a prevalent ritual and folklore and tradition, you probably couldn't express yourself freely. You
yeah,
probably couldn't talk to your loved ones. You probably couldn't take comfort in your faith, because faith would have just been very clear on they're in a better place now, and possibly a bit more
yeah.
harsh back then in those terms. So where do you get to just spew all of this pain out
Mm,
to bees that can't judge you,
yeah,
to an activity that you have to do? You have to go out and you have to tend to your bees. Why not tell
yeah,
them? Why
yeah,
not cry behind your mask? Why not use that point, that kind of oddness and strangeness of the bees, the buzzing, the dancing, the life cycle? And as you say, the fact is that you, as beekeeper, would give yourself to the bees, because you'd give them your time, your tenderness, your attentiveness. You'd keep them safe from pests. You'd spray them. You'd help them. In return, you'd get a gift of honey, but you
yeah,
wouldn't take too much. So it's about balance, and I think that's a big part of it as well. That symbolism of balance and
mm,
life cycles, and the fact that you just do need outlets to it.
mm,
And I think that's why it was such a strong tradition that people really embraced, because you could just kind of say it easily. Oh yeah, it's just a tradition, everybody does it, so and so down the road does it. So it's not me being weak, and it's not me being needy, or it's not me not being the man of the household, or whoever it was that was attending, by talking to the bees. Oh no, you've got to, because they'll fly away, you'll
yeah,
get cursed otherwise. And I
yeah,
think that kind of was a little bit of a mask that people could wear, the beekeeper mask, literally, that you were able to say how you really felt.
mm,
Um, and so obviously, when I was thinking about building the business up, and how I was going to project that, and how I was going to kind of encompass everything, that was why Tell the Bees became just kind of naturally to me of, well, Tell the Bees.
yeah, yeah. It sounds like, now that you've explained it and we've kind of riffed on it a little bit, it's much more powerful than I'd ever imagined, because actually I was like I do a lot of things where I connect with nature and doing all those sorts of things, but actually thinking about this being really quite cathartic, actually, and sort of like almost like a duty, but not. But then having to like go in and telling the bees is something that can feel easier in some ways, because it has to be done. It's like a functional thing, but then it's also like therapeutic in that sort of way. So yeah. And when you were looking at that and sort of thinking about sort of your own experiences, is that, like, how did you go and tell the bees? Is it like, how did you then like link that to your own stuff?
Basically just going outside, sitting out, trying to just be present when I can. Really. Don't have bees of my own, but try to tend to the garden in terms of wildflowers that would be kind of encouraging them and just looking after them. So if there's any that's in the garden that seems a bit struggling or whatever, making them a little bit of sugar water and helping and making sure that any that's trapped in the house you can just let out, and just having a respect for them, really.
Yeah, because I saw a video of you, I think it was on your Instagram, of like with a bee maybe on your finger or something, and it was like, oh, actually it's, and it kind of makes me think about the difference between sort of bees and wasps, and people can really feel sort of connected to bees and then find like wasps kind of feel more of a pest, and there's maybe that assumption that maybe because of the honey, perhaps, that yeah,
probably because it's been a relationship that's been with humanity probably longer than any other relationship with an animal. That humans with animals hunted them for meat, and that was probably it. But bees were probably slightly different. They'd know that they'd have to go in and they'd have to be gentler with them, that they could maybe take the honey, and that possibly that relationship is so more ingrained in humanity and as we've grown through the ages, that there's probably a bit more affinity to them and a bit more compassion for them.
Yeah, of course. And I just think about all these different metaphors that can come into creativity. And sort of, have you always been quite a creative person, Lindsay, or is this maybe come later on? And like you were saying about, we're all creative when we're little. It doesn't kind of like we all have that innate creativity. And has that always been the case for you, or have you leaned in and out of it?
No, it's always been the case. Kind of as soon as I was holding things, it's always been, I've been drawing. It was very much something that was encouraged by family and by my grandma and my mum and everyone around me. So yeah, it's been good.
Yeah. And how's it been helpful for you?
Yeah, it has. It's been really helpful. It's kind of the only way I can truly switch off, because otherwise there's always chatter going off, there's always thoughts in my head, there's always the next thing that I've got to deal with or look after or anticipate with another person and things like that. So it's like it is the only time that silence seems to happen.
Sort of being present, isn't it? And maybe being in flow, like you said earlier. Yeah. And I was just sort of mindful about, what you were saying about kind of what you do and how you sort of helping people. And like there's things that you've shared briefly about your own experiences, but I wonder what sort of, if there's anything you'd like to share about that, or if there's any sort of insights that you want to share about your own experience that you'd want to share with people.
Well, I know one of the strongest reasons why I've kind of gone to this is because I had a miscarriage a couple of years ago, and it was a surprise to me, especially with all the well-being that I'd done and all of the studying and all of the understanding and this, that, and other, how much it rocked me and how much it seemed to affect me.
Yeah.
And it did surprise me that it's like, oh, I am having some mental health struggles here.
Yeah.
But I think if I hadn't have been so up to date with different kind of techniques and different things, and I hadn't done my counselling skills and I hadn't done my coaching by that point, I'd have probably struggled more to identify it and identify what I needed.
Mm.
And I needed to take some time off from work. That was one of the things that I had to do, even though
Yeah.
I did feel very guilty about that, not just for my husband in terms of finances and things like that, but in terms of leaving the people at work stranded. But it
Yeah.
was also one of those where it was a moment where I thought, no, if I try to just keep carrying on, this is going to get worse. So
Yeah.
I had to make that point of, no, I have to stop, need to go to the doctors. I need to accept and acknowledge that something doesn't feel right, because
Mm.
it wasn't easy to process early on.
Mm.
So then it was a case of I delved into the techniques that seemed to be helping. Journaling, that was an
Yeah.
important thing that I did. Writing down thoughts and feelings. The painting was something, and it wasn't that it was to be good, and it wasn't that it had to be for any purpose at the end. It was literally for me to use the space to gain perspective, to give my
Yeah.
subconscious a bit of time to process it. Um, and again, the things of trying your best, even though you sometimes I just didn't want to get out of bed, but
Mm.
making a point of standing outside, even if I wasn't going for a walk, just getting fresh air, and slowly, gradually, from following all the things that I was telling people to do, it's made me understand better the process, and
Yeah.
that it is so valuable and so important for
Yeah.
people to bring some sort of creativity or expression into that grieving process. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, I think people are so kind of focused on the stages of grief, and it's like
Right.
there's a lot more stages of grief, and it is not bumpty bumpty bum. There is no, oh, you're in this stage, you automatically move. No, you'll go back 5 stages some days. And it's not that you are only purely in the sadness stage. You can have sadness and anger and happiness at the same time because something good's happened. And then you can have guilt, and then you can have resentment. And there's so many complicated emotions. And there's
Mm.
so much ambivalence when it comes to grief as well. Because I lost my father in 2016, and I was
Yeah.
devastated. I was very close. I've always been a daddy's girl. My personality is very much him in terms of it, the practicality side, the being an anchor to everybody else that's floating around. I was very much
Yeah.
like that. Losing him was a powerful thing. But then there was my wedding, which was a sad experience, and then there was the birth of my first son, and that was a sad experience. But there was also such joy, because it's one of these things where it's like I can look at my son and I can think, I can tell you all the stories about Grandad.
Yeah.
I can make him live again, and I can make him live inside your mind,
Mm.
because we're going to share his name, we're going to share his stories, we're going to share all these little bits. And it's that thing that, because I am me, because of him,
Yeah.
my sons will be them because of him.
Yeah.
So it's a really powerful thing to keep telling stories of them.
Yeah. It's really hanging on to those memories, isn't it? That feels really important. And I was thinking, what was your dad's name?
Peter.
Peter. Hello,
Peter.
Peter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
He sounds like when, because you're saying about getting your character from him, it sounds like actually when you're being true, I would wonder this, when you're being true to yourself, whether that makes a difference for you and your sort of relationship with your dad and feeling like that.
I think so, because it's like I've always felt like, in terms of my artistic abilities, my nurturing side, my empathetic side, that's very much my mother.
Yeah.
But my humour and my kind of sledgehammer way of going about things sometimes is very much my father. And so every informed choice I make is a reflection on them both, but obviously on his influence. So everything that I do and how I live daily is because of him. And this is one of the things, you never not think about them. Like, I never not think about the baby I lost. But that baby I lost, if I had had that baby, I wouldn't have Francis now. So that's my other son. So I've got Francis and Douglas. And it's like, I won't ever resent the world for what it throws at me. I'll only ever use it and try to take lessons from everything that it gives to me.
That sounds like a really brave position to be in, and a real kind of, like, I'd imagine that a lot of people would find that really hard to maybe feel very stuck and feel, so actually it feels like they're really lucky to have you in their corner, sort of thing. And I was just really struck just by your story and just the maybe the differences in perhaps how you're feeling those losses yourself, and just wondering about like maybe different responses depending, like, because a baby loss, miscarriage versus kind of your dad might kind of be perceived very differently from people. And I think a lot about disenfranchised grief and how actually that can be quite traumatic, because a lot of the maybe people don't really understand as well. Did you experience that? Or
Oh yeah. I mean, I must admit that the work environment I was with, the people I worked very closely with, were fantastic, very understanding, and it is a thing though. It seems to pass people very quickly, and I think a lot of it is because with my dad, other people experienced his existence.
yeah,
So they had their own stories, their own impressions, their own thoughts and feelings about him. He was a physical person that they could attribute things to.
yeah,
Whereas miscarriage, and I know it's so different because I did have a son beforehand, my experience could have been so vastly different if it had been the first, the fourth, if I'm struggling to conceive generally. So as I say, everyone's is so unique, and that's the thing to remember, that you can't ever say, well, this is how I felt, so this is how you should feel.
yeah,
It's also a fact that it's like a future you imagined has been taken away, and it was never real, but
yeah,
in your heart it was, because you loved. And I think as soon as you love,
yeah,
it's as real as it can be. And this is the thing with the with the mind and reality, and it's very much strong because it was there within you,
yeah,
as a thought, as a presence, as a feeling, hormones, your body. You knew something was happening. But I think it's a very lonely grief, is miscarriage. And even though I had a partner that was very supportive, he just wasn't feeling what I was feeling.
yeah,
And I never expected him to. But it's that thing that it's because it was more of an abstract thought to him. Because for him, the future would have been 9 months down the road, would have been when there was a bump maybe, or felt a kick or something. But as soon as, for me personally, I saw those little double lines, I was a mum again.
Yeah.
And then I wasn't. And I was a mum to one rather than a mum to two.
Yeah.
And it's something that does take a lot of reconciling and processing. And again, it can feel like it's a taboo subject. And
Yeah.
it's a very hidden grief as well, because a lot of times most people don't even know a woman's pregnant. So a woman might know that they're pregnant, then suddenly they're not anymore, and they have nowhere to go or turn to or really talk to, and it's just a very much internalized. And a lot of the times, and maybe this is generalization, but women are the ones that look after and nurture and tend to the hearts of others.
Yeah.
But we're so often the ones that put ourselves at the back of the line to tend to our own needs. So it can be very, very hard to find the right space where you are able to really believe and have that child with you. So yeah, and it was it was one of these things as well where, slightly getting off topic, but I don't get why a women's reproductive system is everybody else's business as well.
Yeah. I think that, I think you're right with that. And I think there's so much that we hold on to as women. I don't have any children myself, and I've had lots of things about kind of the uterus, and don't have one, but then like operations and things like that would affect me, and it's so easy to challenge my worth because of that. But it's a societal thing, and so actually you're right with that we kind of have these historical expectations and thoughts that are very different to how men might be. And often it is the woman, whether they've got children or not, that do the mothering sort of thing. And it sounds like you actually taking time for yourself when you were grieving would have been really hard, and taking time to fill your cup would have been really hard, especially with a little one as well.
Yeah,
So
it was.
actually,
It was that thing of a struggle to give enough of myself to my son, give enough of myself to my friends, to my family, to my partner, without losing myself. And it is a very tricky thing. And I will hold up, and there's no TikTok magic balm to this. There's no Instagram filter that'll put it all okay. It takes a lot of hard work and introspection and a lot of grind until you do start to feel better. But it has to happen that way, and you have to be willing to put the hard work in yourself. Otherwise, it just won't work.
Yeah. So, and like you said about how it's a very personal experience, nobody had met that child or like before or anything compared to your dad, that actually if somebody else is going through that same experience or similar, what sort of advice would you give to them? What sort of messages would you be saying?
So I'd be very much having a very strong emphasis on, don't be afraid to tell people what dreams and hopes you had for them. If you had a name that you wanted, if you felt that there was going to be a particular gender to them, and it's not a case of fantasy, and it's not a case of not living in the real world. It's about bringing that baby that you hoped for, that you loved, into something tangible for yourself and for others to understand.
Yeah.
So instead of people just thinking, oh, yeah, well, that's sad, but these things happen. Oh, yeah, miscarriages, that's what just don't need to talk about. If you can stand up proudly and say, no, my baby would have been called, and for me personally, my baby would have been called Eloise because I've got 2 boys, and that would have always been the name for a girl.
Yeah.
So it's a case of, no, Eloise was real to me. Eloise existed in the world, in the universe, and I don't care how briefly she was here. She was loved completely, utterly, and unconditionally. And if that love carries forward somewhere into the world, then I hope it reaches a person that it needs to. And it's
Yeah.
all just about making it as tangible as you can. So this would be why creating something would be good, like a memorial to it, or some sort of remembrance or ritual,
Yeah.
bringing it into your physical space, making it real. And each time you do it, there's more connections, there's more time to process it, there's more perspective that you gain. And it allows you to feel those unpleasant feelings, but it then gives you more resilience with them.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that would be my biggest thing, is to not be quiet about it.
Yeah.
And if other people are uncomfortable, as harsh as it sounds, that's their problem. That's not
Yeah.
yours. And it's
So it's,
not your responsibility to step on eggshells. Now, you can obviously be kind if it's a triggering point for someone, but it doesn't mean that you should stay silent and you
yeah.
shouldn't share that love that you had for them.
Yeah, I hear you on that, because it takes you back to that idea of maybe playing small rather than kind of genuinely expressing yourself, and back to maybe that idea of telling the bees when other people might not be able to tolerate it. And Eloise is such a lovely name. I don't know many people called Eloise, so it does make her really real. I really kind of feel her sort of presence, and especially, you know, you're having a boy, and like how they might be. And what you said about how you'd got your character from your dad, and certain things from your mum, certain things from your dad. And actually, like when you said about having those hopes and aspirations, and those, how you might imagine like your baby growing, are there certain characteristics that you'd imagine that she might have had that from you?
I'd have hoped she'd have been a little me. Now, it would have driven me mad.
Yeah.
Absolutely would have driven me bonkers. But I'd have hoped she'd have been strong, independent, wouldn't step down, that she'd understand her worth as well, that we'd
Yeah.
be able to instill that in her, that she would understand that love shouldn't ever come with conditions. And if there's anyone ever trying to put conditions upon her, that she should understand to run away. And I would have liked for her to have been a little bit braver than me, take a few more
Yeah.
risks than me, maybe be a bit more adventurous. I mean, it's a sad fact, but I think I was always born with a 30-year-old soul. So
Okay.
even as a teenager, I wasn't ever wild. I wasn't ever a risk taker and things like that. So I'd have probably hoped that she'd have rebelled a little bit more than I
Yeah.
did. But
Yeah. 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 And because it, like you saying about, you know, these things make her real, which makes your grief real. And it's like in the name of sort of acceptance, that balance of acceptance and change and healing, when something feels real, that's when we can feel the feelings and process them.
Yeah.
typically, like the way that I kind of see it, a lot of people struggle with their grief when they maybe are like very much in shock, that numb stage. And actually, I'm with you on the, you know, those stages of grief, and by no means linear, but actually people like being able to be self-aware of what's going on for you can be quite helpful. So if somebody was going through some grief at the moment, if they were feeling a certain thing and maybe thinking, oh, I shouldn't be feeling that, it's been so long, so it's been so many months or so many years, I shouldn't be feeling that. There's maybe something about allowing whatever to happen.
And that's one of the things. It's like emotions are never wrong. It's how you then act afterwards.
Sure. Yeah.
So if you have an emotion, and even if it's one that you think is an ugly one, like anger or jealousy or resentment or sadness or a breakdown, it's there for a reason. It's
Yeah.
some part of your brain telling you this is not okay. There is something not right in your life, in your world, in your universe, and you need to acknowledge it, and you need to process, and you need to build from it. Because
Yeah.
if you keep on ignoring, then you're never going to make
Yeah.
it better.
Yeah. It's true, isn't it? It's like all feelings are valid. Often people would say all feelings are valid, but then there'd be a bit of a caveat. But that particular feeling,
Mm,
maybe not. Don't be jealous. Don't be resentful. You know,
yeah,
and actually, all feelings are valid. There's
all
reasons
feelings
and
are
there's meanings of them and messages, sort of things.
valid.
So yeah, that feels really important to capture. And like just thinking about creativity and how actually it sounds like that's what you're doing with your creativity as well,
Yeah,
like just
yeah.
being able to express those
As
things.
I say, it's a safe space that can be created by the individual in order to get things out. So especially
Yeah.
with anger, if you're out in the garden, you can be hammering your spade into the earth and physically getting it out and things like that.
Yeah, that
So it's
cathartic expression.
yeah, yeah. So it's one of those where it's always use it as a jumping off point to some
Mm,
sort of expression or creativity. So if you're jealous, write yourself a letter, or write a letter to the person that you're jealous with and get it all out, because once it's
yeah.
out, it's not cycling and recycling and circling and spiraling. You've
Mm,
broken it. As soon as you put it down out into the physical world, you've broken it. And it means that you can then pause and think, right, okay, so what is it about this? And it gives you a bit more chance to gain perspective rather than it
yeah.
just sitting inside your head.
Yeah, so seeing things from a different perspective sounds, yeah, like that's part of it, isn't it? And being
Mm-hmm.
able to not be so stuck and or consumed by all your big emotions and everything.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So is there anything that you'd like to mention now that we've not talked about yet, or
Um, Probably so much. I mean, it's one of these I could actually be talking to you all night, and that
yeah.
wouldn't be good for you, for your ear, for my throat, for for anyone. But the main thing that I would say to anyone listening to this as a takeaway, if they are at that point where the grief isn't all consuming, but it seems to be halting them from really moving on, is to not be scared and just start doing.
Mm,
Journaling is a fantastic way to do it, or photography. I found taking selfies of myself day to day really helped, because it helped me see the spark come back into
yeah.
my eyes. So you could use that as a means. You could tell stories. You could write letters. It's just a part of, just do something. Stop avoiding it. Just start is one of
Yeah.
the best things that I could say to people.
Yeah. That sounds like just a brilliant message. And like I feel like it's been a pleasure to talk to you, and I really appreciate you sharing very personal things whilst also supporting other people and giving people tips as to what they can do. So it feels like that you've been on quite a journey. So we've got like your links to your website and I think to some socials, so we'll put those in the show notes. And if people were wanting to ask you a question or anything like that, where's the best place for them to reach out to you? Because we've got those links. Where would you prefer?
So best thing would either direct message me on Instagram, or I have a little contact form on my website, and it just asks for a few details from yourself, and then the question at the end is, how can I support you? And just tell me what it is that you want from me.
Yeah, that sounds really helpful, because sometimes people just get a bit stuck as to where to go. So we'll have those in the show notes. And thank you so much. It's been an absolute pleasure. It's given me some food for thought. It's making me want to go and create something as well. I'm just thinking about some of my experiences and how it just remembering how important that is. It's lovely to talk to somebody else that's creative and that gets it, sort of thing. So thank you for coming on today.
Thank you.
Yeah, and thank you, listeners, for listening in for my conversation today with Lindsay. I hope you found this useful or interesting in some way. And if you do have any questions, reach out. And if there are any things that you're struggling with right now, then reach out. There's always support out there. Sometimes the hardest thing is to ask for help. And sometimes you don't know it's maybe just taking that next step, that first step, and then the support can come. So thank you so much, and see you soon. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.